Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Best Back to School Ever Admin Edition here at OpenLMS. We are really excited that you're here to join us today. We're going to get started. We are recording this session, so there will be a recording available. If at any time you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We will take some questions at the end and have a nice period of time there for some question and answers. My name is Amy Testator, and I am a Senior Manager of Engagement here at eThink by OpenLMS. I am here today to talk to you kind of about how to get ready for the beginning of the school year, the beginning of that semester, as we're starting to roll in and get things ready, all those different things we might forget about, the little pieces. So we're going to talk about those today. We'll kind of go through this in a checklist format. And then after the session later today, we'll actually have a PDF of a checklist for you. So we'll hand that off to you later today so that you have it and you can use it as you're getting ready. We'll jump in and get started now. All right, there we go. All right, so an overview of today's session, we're going to talk a little bit about user accounts and making sure that everything is prepped and ready to go with our user accounts, including making sure that we've checked our authentication methods. We'll talk about creating those courses. So are those ready to go yet for your faculty? And if not, what do you need to do? And how far ahead should you plan to have those ready for the next semester? We'll talk about checking out our plugins and LTIs to make sure everything's working the way they should there. If you've had a recent upgrade, we'll go over some things and some tips and things that you might like to have as you're rolling out that new upgrade to your faculty and students. We'll talk a little bit about course organization and performance, some communication tools, a course prep checklist that you may want to create to give to your faculty, and how to prepare for key upcoming dates. So let's jump right in with user management and authentication. So obviously, beginning of every school year, we have a lot of users to manage, either users who are not coming back, users who enrolled in courses and are now withdrawing from them or dropping, changing around. We also need to create users, and there are many different ways that we can do that with the platform. So if you're doing manual creation of users one at a time, that's great if you have just a few to do, maybe under 5. Manual creation works well. Sometimes we have to use multiple creation methods over time. Maybe we need to create a single account for someone like an observer or a dean or someone like that. The other option we have, if we're creating them and they're not being created by an integration with an external database, is the CSV upload. So with the CSV upload, we can input information into a CSV file, upload that file, and we can both create accounts or make changes to existing accounts. So if someone already has a user account created there on the site, we can make some changes, reset their password. We can also use this CSV not only to create those accounts, but we can also enroll people in courses, multiple courses if we need to, and we can even put them into groups. So if you have any questions about using CSV upload, you haven't done that before, reach out to us. We're happy to help. When you are on your platform, if you go into your site administration area, click on users and go down to upload users, you'll see that there's actually an example template already there for you that you can download and use to create user accounts. There are some other fields that you can add, such as courses and things like that, categories, cohorts. So just let us know if you need any help with that. Sometimes, though, you may have your users being created through an integration with an external database. So that could be your student information system, for example. If that's something that you're doing, you're going to want to make sure that that is up and running and functioning and ready to go for you. There are some different things to consider. There are pieces that in the student information system that must match fields within your learning management system. So if there have been any changes to that, make sure you reach out to us. You may want to run a test and just see if a couple of users come over when you do that test. But that is a one way to make things work. If you're not currently using one of those integrations and you think that you might like to, or you want to explore that a little more, reach out to us through Zendesk and ask those questions. We're happy to help and see if we can get something running for you to tie your two systems together to make that user creation a little bit easier for you. All right, when it comes down to authentication, has anything changed or will it change before the start of the semester? If it has or it's going to, make sure you let us know so that we're prepared. If you find that courses start and all of a sudden people are having trouble logging onto the site, and you're using a campus-based authentication method such as Office 365 or Google, make sure that you let us know if there are any issues. But also you may want to reach out to your IT team because they may be able to answer those questions first. A lot of times we find that the issue is actually on the IT side, local to the campus, so check with them first, but any issues, make sure you let us know. We're happy to work with you and make sure that we get that authentication up and going and everyone is in and logged in for that first day of class. Course creation. Now, how far out you create courses kind of depends on the situation that you're in, but oftentimes there are requirements ahead of time. Sometimes people want those fall courses back in the spring before they leave for the summer. So, are you creating those courses manually? Are you using a course upload where you're uploading courses? Do you have a template course that so as course shells are created via your SIS integration, is it pulling from a template so things are created with what they need in them? And then how are you bringing information into that course? Remember, if you're doing a course import or course copy, you'll want to get ahead and get a jump start on getting all of those things done. If you're leaving that as a responsibility to the instructor where they're going to import the content, make sure that you're communicating that ahead of time. Other things to know is that as we're creating courses, there are some features that don't necessarily come over. So we may see that certain access restrictions, such as date restrictions, don't come over when we duplicate a course or import a course. Those things will have to be set up again. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get down to our faculty checklist. All right, are you post-upgrade? I know many of you are. Many of you have had an upgrade over the summer, over the break here. So you've upgraded to a new version of the site, and there may be some new features that your faculty are wondering about or that look different. So in that case, you may want to be preemptive here and create just a very short new features document or video for your faculty. Put that in a centralized location where people can go in and look at it. This also helps you to prepare because if someone finds those new features and they want to use them, you'll know how to guide and direct them. If there are new features that you are not using in your institution, you'll want to communicate that too. So for example, the download course feature that is new in version 3.10, not everyone is using that. And so if that's something you're not going to enable, you may want to communicate that ahead of time. If it is something you're going to be using, you may want to be able to provide that information to your faculty about what it looks like, how it looks for the student versus the teacher in a course, and what functionality is actually there. You also want to double check your plugins. And I know that pre-upgrade, we encourage you to do this, but you may want to check afterwards as well and just make sure that things function the way that you thought they would. If your site as a whole has been upgraded, good chance all your plugins have been updated as well. They may look or act a little bit differently. They may even have some new functionality. So make sure you go through and you are in a sandbox course on your site, double checking those plugins and making sure things work the way you expected. If there's something new, be sure to document it and communicate it. When it comes to your LTIs or external tools, these are always something you should try out each year. These are things that sometimes we see some changes made on the back end with things over at the publisher or the third party, and not always necessarily well communicated. So be sure to check those. If you've upgraded to a version 3.10 or beyond, you might want to ask your third-party vendor if they're using the upgraded versions of LTI, so LTI 1.3. If they are, that may be something that you want to change. You may want to move away from that legacy LTI to the newer version, which has some different functionality. The other thing to ask about is whether or not that vendor has a unique icon URL for that tool. And the reason that this can be important is because, as we all know, we go in to the site and we add an external tool, and the icon looks the same for all of the tools. And sometimes this can be a little confusing to both to any user. So whenever there is the option for a unique icon, I would ask your third-party vendor if they have one, and you can put it in. This makes it a little bit easier to decipher exactly what it is that I'm jumping into or adding to my course. All right, so course organization and performance. As admins, we've all been in there where we go into a course and we're trying to help someone get things organized. So where do we start with that? Well, we start by making sure that our faculty are able to choose the right tool for the job to help keep those courses organized. Some of our favorites here at OpenLMS are the book activity, where we can create an electronic book. So what was once several documents on a course page can now go into one single book. Each page has its own unique URL, so I can link to an individual page anytime I want to reference it. But it's a good way to have a single point, a single source of lots of information. This helps to really lessen what we're seeing on the course page, and that will also help course pages join more, help the course pages load more easily. Lesson is another good option. So if we're trying to move away from things like slide decks, using a lesson is a great way to do that. We can have our learners progress through, they can go into clusters or branches, and this can be really helpful for them, but it also helps to create a different type of learning experience using this same content that our teachers had always used. So we can just take that PowerPoint content and we can copy and paste without formatting right into lesson, and then just add questions and things along the way. Things like glossary are a nice way for a teacher to create an FAQ or to have a collection of information. So if they want to curate a collection of information about a topic, maybe it's all of the formulas they're going to use in chemistry this time, or all of the equations they're going to use in algebra this semester, they can put those in a glossary. That's a centralized place where learners can come in and get that information. Really helps to organize things. And finally, stealth activities. So stealth activities need to be enabled on the site level. If you don't see them on your site, double check that and see if you can turn them on, or open a ticket with us and we're happy to enable this. A stealth activity lets you put something on the course page, but the students can't see that it exists there. Whenever I want my students to access that, I just provide a direct link to that activity. So if I'm putting in rubrics, for example, and I have them all loaded in the course, and I only want the student to see the rubric when they're in the activity it applies to. Within that activity, I can just reference that rubric, make a link, and when it's clicked, that link will automatically open the rubric. This allows our instructors and us to put lots of content into a course, but make the course look very minimal. All of these help to improve course performance because when we have fewer items to load on any given page, the page will load faster. So the courses move more quickly, they appear more responsive. Other ways that we can improve course performance are to avoid uploading video directly onto the course page. So rather than putting those MP4s right into the course, let's put them on a file share service such as YouTube or Vimeo Pro, where we can link out to them. This means that we're only putting the link in the course instead of uploading that large file. This also will help you if keeping your site storage down, is a consideration for you. So if you don't want to have a huge site that's ballooning to a really large size, keeping those videos out of the courses, the video files themselves out of the courses, will help you to manage that more easily. Also, when adding video, such as a YouTube link, or you're adding pictures, images to the course, try to avoid having your faculty put those right out on the main course page, because every time the course loads, all of those things on the course page need to load. Instead, put those items inside an activity. So put that video on a page or put that image within something else. This way, it only has to load when that particular activity loads, and this will help with the overall performance of the course. So it'll make things load more quickly. It also helps when we have learners on mobile browsers or the mobile app. They can get in there and move around without waiting for all of these things to try to load. So it just improves the experience overall for everyone. Finally, we want to avoid that scroll of death. And we all know that we have courses on our site where we go in and we see this scroll of death. So how do we do this? You can work on the side kind of exploring some different course formats on your site. And as you're looking at that, creating some sandbox courses of your own, you can start to look at how different formats might be useful for your faculty. And then you can make suggestions to them. You can help your faculty organize those courses so they're a little easier to navigate by telling them about things like book or lesson or glossary. And you can also test all those courses on the mobile app. So highly encourage this, going in and testing those courses and seeing what they look like on the mobile app, and then providing feedback to whoever is creating those courses or teaching those courses to let them know what those courses look like on the mobile app. We know that right now the majority of users are accessing online content via a mobile device in one way or another. There are estimates that up to 80% of what people are accessing is actually being accessed through a mobile device. This is no different for our courses and what we have online in our learning management system. So when you're out there and you're creating those things, be sure to test everything on the mobile app. Communication is key, and there are several communication tools built right into the platform. Couple things to think about as you're heading into this semester. When it comes to forums, they typically have a built-in editing delay. You'll notice when you post to a forum, it might say you have 30 minutes to edit this post. What that means is the notification of that post is also not going to go out for 30 minutes. So there's going to be a lag. Make sure that that setting is set in a way that makes sense for your organization or university. And if you need that changed, open up a ticket with us and let's have a conversation. But it's something I always remind faculty of at the beginning of the semester. If you're posting something that's time sensitive, that is not going to go out for at least 30 minutes. The other thing to know is what are your default notifications for forums? So if you're using something like Digest, and that Digest goes out at 5 p.m. every day, if faculty are posting a forum announcement at 6 p.m., that forum announcement will not go out in Digest until the next day at 5 p.m. It's important to know what those settings are and share and communicate those with your faculty so that you aren't fielding lots of questions about forum notifications that weren't received. If people know when they're supposed to go out, it really does help them tailor how they're going to use forums. If you have any questions about what the editing period is on your forums or what the default notifications are for your site, let us know. We're happy to help there. Another great communication tool is the Messenger app within the site. So within all of our sites, there's the Messenger option. It functions a lot like instant messenger on social media platforms, so very similar to using, WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or something like that. You want to make sure that it's enabled and turned on your site if it's something you plan to use. There are a couple of little settings, such as whether or not Enter sends a message or gives you a line break. So think about how you want those things set up. But Messenger is a great thing to reach multiple people at once. So this is something I like to communicate out with my faculty. If you need to remind people of something or you want to message a certain group of students in your course, you can do so by going to the participants page, ticking the box next to each person who needs to receive the message, scrolling to the bottom, and from the drop-down choosing to send a message. You as admins can do this as well. So if you ever need to send a message, for example, you need to have some downtime on the student information system or the financial aid portal will be down, you can actually send a message to all of the learners on the site. And when you do this, even though you've selected them all almost like you were doing a group message, it actually goes to them individually and they can respond back to you individually. So even though we're sending that group message, it can feel very personalized. It's just one of the many options for communications on the platform. Additionally, if you're using QuickMail, if that's a QuickMail block is something that you are using and you know that your faculty like to use it, double check it, make sure everything's working. Make sure that it's also configured and it's available in all of the courses. And so this kind of comes back to whether or not we're using a course template. For those of you who are, if your teachers like to use QuickMail and you know that, you may want to add the QuickMail block to your course template. But always check and make sure that that block is configured and ready to be used for the start of the semester. Now, one of the things that we can do as admins to sort of help our faculty and reduce our own workload is to create a course prep checklist for our faculty that we send out. Things that we typically remind our faculty to do are double check their gradebook setup. In my gradebook checklist, I'll often tell them, check your aggregation methods, double check your point values and your weightings, and make sure that things are arranged in a way that makes sense. So these are things that you may want to produce to send out to your faculty to help them on their way, but also to help reduce some of that workload and the fielding of questions that you may have. Gradebook setup is always one piece. The other is that conditional release setup that I mentioned earlier. This doesn't always transfer over. So if I've created a master course and set each week to open on a certain date and time, when I import that all over to the new course shell, those date restrictions do not usually come forward. So those will all need to be reset. I always remind faculty of that in my course checklist so that they know that those are things they need to check. I also remind them to double check and update all of their open, close, and cutoff dates in their courses. Again, if they are just importing from last year, those dates will come over and not necessarily shift according to the new course start date. And even if they do, always a good opportunity to check things and make sure the dates are set up well. I also remind my faculty on my course prep checklist that we like to close activities at 11:55 p.m. versus exactly midnight to help avoid confusion about when the date rolls over. For multiple reasons, closing things at midnight creates lots of confusion with which day something was due. So I remind faculty of that and have them set things for a close date of 11:55 p.m. where that's appropriate. I encourage the faculty to double check all their blocks, make sure that they have what they're supposed to have in their course. And if they have any questions about the way things look or any new blocks they might see, that's a good time to open that conversation. I also tend to put a common resources section in. So for most courses, if there's some technical help resources that our learners need, for example, here's who you report Moodle problems to, and here's who you report third-party software problems to, such as if we're using, publisher software or test proctoring software. And I'll create that resource and I'll put that in each course. So I can create it somewhere else and then put it in the courses or put it in my course template. But if there are common resources that you're using, think about what the best possible way is for people to access those. Is it to put them in the menu across the very top, the header bar on the site where everyone's able to get to them and it's easier for you to manage them? Is it better for you to put them in blocks or to create a topic within courses? Also, you can help your faculty by teaching them how to template activities. So they can create an assignment and put all the settings that they would normally have for an assignment, and they can make that a template. And anytime they want to create an assignment, they just duplicate that template and then add the appropriate information. The same can be done for almost anything, whether it's quizzes or forums or even workshop. There can be a template of each activity where all of the typical settings that your faculty would like are already there, and they just duplicate out that template activity and customize it for the individual use. So I like to share that with faculty so that I can help them to also work smarter, but this will save you a lot of time as well as an admin. The other thing to think about is how do you prepare for key dates? So obviously the start of the semester is the big piece of things that we're looking at. We're trying to get ready for that. How do we roll things out? But once the semester begins, we have some additional key dates. We have our first assessments. These tend to fall around the same time. They're often tests. So we want to make sure that things like quiz autosave are enabled so that if people are going through the quiz and they get cut off or they drop or they accidentally close out of the quiz, that quiz has been auto-saving in the background so their progress is saved. We want to know about and communicate the different feedback options that are available on the quiz. And you'll want to also make sure that you know what your default options that are enabled there are, so that when someone's creating a quiz, they know which things to turn off and how, setting a time limit or a due date or submission settings impacts what people can see for feedback. This is also a good time in the lead up to those first assessments to check your proctoring software. So if you're using a third party for proctoring software, you're going to want to check in with them and run some tests. So you'll want to see if you can do some example quick runs of a quiz or a test just to make sure that the proctoring software is functioning properly, but also so that your teachers have an opportunity to see any new features that may have rolled out in that proctoring software. Make sure that you talk about quiz setup with your faculty and you are prepared and ready to help them with that as they're rolling into those first assessments. Things like user overrides or group overrides if we have a group of students who are getting extra time or extended time or different conditions for something like a quiz. Those are all helpful resources that your faculty may need to know about, but it's really helpful for you as well to anticipate what that need is and hopefully preemptively answer any questions people might have. The next major date is likely your add drop period. So usually we have that add drop period coming up pretty early on in the semester, usually within like the first 2 weeks or so. So you'll want to plan ahead about what your process will be for how you'll suspend or add students. If you have an integration with your student information system, typically all of that comes in through there. But if you don't and you're managing those accounts manually, you'll need to have an idea, a plan in place for how you're going to manage all of those add drops and what you're going to do. Are you going to suspend the students who drop, or withdraw them from the course itself. If we withdraw students from the course, we take all of their history and data with them. If we suspend them, they're no longer able to actively participate, but any participation they did have up until that point will be documented. So that you are able to maintain that if you need to for your records. Other things to think about is what happens if people are just shifting between different sections? Will you need to carry any work over or things like that? Keep all of those things in mind and make a plan ahead of time. After that, you probably have your withdrawal period or midterms. So we'll talk about both of those. The withdrawal period, a little bit different than that add drop period there. So during the withdrawal period, people will likely have a lot of coursework completed that you probably need to maintain. So when it comes up to the withdrawal period, make a plan for how to suspend students in the course as opposed to withdrawing them, deleting their enrollment. Midterms usually bring about more tests, lots of papers, and people needing to export grades to either send them to the registrar or making sure that we're pushing grades back to the SIS. Let's make sure that we are thinking ahead of that. If this is something that's new to you, that grade export, reach out to us. We're happy to walk you through that so that you are well prepared when it comes to midterms. Midterms are typically where we see the most tickets come up, where an assignment was set to close at midnight, or a learner has said that they've submitted something on time, and we're seeing it on the platform as being late. Coming into midterms and the end of the semester, this is a good time to familiarize yourself with how to look at course logs and what information might be in there. It's within those course logs that you can actually see whether or not someone has uploaded something to an assignment, submitted. You can see if they've accepted the submission statement. So you can get a pretty good idea of when people are submitting and exactly what their behavior was within any given activity. This is always important as we head into things like midterms and the end of semester. At the end of the semester, you'll probably get a lot of questions about gradebook verification. And so that's why having that gradebook setup checklist for your faculty at the beginning is pretty important. You'll want to be able to answer some questions about the aggregation methods, whether or not grades can be overridden if the gradebook is accurate. But probably the biggest question that we see come in toward the end of the semester is, why does what I see for the student grade on the grader report differ from what they see on their user report? And some common answers to that question could be that not all of the grades are visible to the learner, so they will only see on the user report grades that have been released to them, but I as the teacher will see all of the grades. That's the number one time that we see that happen, but sometimes there are some other things, such as whether or not a grade is being dropped, and I may be thinking of seeing this grade show up in the grader report. The student doesn't see it at all because it's been dropped. All of those are things that come up, especially toward the end of the semester. So be prepared for those gradebook verification questions. You may want to have an FAQ ready to go to help educate your faculty, help them along the way with those gradebook questions. And as always, we're always here to help you and support you with your gradebook questions. So if anything comes up that you are struggling to find the answer to, let us know. So just remember, as we head into the semester, we need to focus on our user creation, choosing the method that's appropriate for us, and that may be a combination of methods, whether we're manually creating those accounts, using a CSV upload, or we have an integration with an external system such as Active Directory or Student Information System. However our users are getting created, we want to be mindful and stay on top of that, have a plan for if something goes wrong in creating users, but also have a time frame for when those users will be created. My guess is coming into the fall semester, most of you have already created users. If you're interested in exploring a different way to create your users, you've been doing it manually and now you're hearing about CSV, or you're wondering if there's the option for an integration with your SIS, now's the time to reach out to us and ask questions about that. User enrollment, again, this can happen in one of many ways. If you're using a CSV file to create those accounts or to edit the existing accounts, you can use that CSV to also enroll people in the courses. You're going to want to also make sure you're checking your authentication method. So manually created accounts are going to have manual authentication, but if you're using something like Google or Office 365 for authentication. Make sure you're testing it now and let us know if there's any changes that are going to happen to that external system that might impact your learners and users' ability to log on to their site and into their courses. When we talk about course creation, we're not just talking about fall. We want to make a plan for fall and beyond. So are we using that course copy feature that we saw roll out in version 3.9 and beyond? Are we creating course shells through an integration with our student information system? Are we uploading courses using a CSV to create a shell and importing information in? Have a plan, have some dates rolled out, but also be sure to communicate who's responsible for each piece. So if it's the teacher's responsibility to import things, make sure that they know that ahead of time. Many of you are going to be post-upgrade coming into this semester, so be sure to check if there's anything that looks different. If you've undergone a theme upgrade, for example, things may be in a different place and you'll have a lot of questions to answer as people are wondering where things are or why they look differently. Check your plugins. See if there's new functionality if you've upgraded in particular, just to make sure that you are able to speak to them and give people information. Test all of those plugins. Also, now is a good time to think ahead about, are there other plugins that you have on the site? So if you are an OpenLMS EDU client, you may be wanting to take a peek at your plugin matrix now and see what's there, and talk to us about what the functionality of some of those things are. If you are an eThink by OpenLMS client, there may be some plugins that you're wondering about or functionality you just are wondering if it exists. Reach out to us. We're happy to answer those questions for you. Also check your LTI's external tools. Double check everything's working well. Reach out to that third-party vendor and ask them if there have been any updates to that LTI. Communicate. Make sure that you're communicating when the courses are opening and who's opening them. Any new features that have rolled out that faculty may find or students may find helpful, and where and what help resources people have access to. So if there are help resources that you have for that are student facing or that are faculty facing, make sure that you share that and you let people know where they're going to find those things so they know where to go. When it comes to course organization and performance, making sure that we have an efficiently running course is key here. So using those different tools, activities, and resources that are available to curate large collections of information, helping to declutter the course is really helpful. Also remember, we're trying to avoid having lots of video or image directly on the course page. Instead, we're going to put those into activities or resources such as page or book or even in an assignment. And then we're also going to make sure that if at all possible, we're using a file share service such as YouTube or Vimeo to get those links into the course. This helps to keep the course size down, which just helps with overall how quickly the course loads and how well it runs in a mobile device as well. When it comes to communication, double check those forum settings. Make sure you communicate out how learners and users on the site are going to be receiving their forum notifications. Are they getting a notification for every post? Is there a digest going out? And when does that digest go out? Make sure that everyone is on board and they know what those settings are so that they know what to expect when they're using forum. Remind faculty, forums are not a great way to communicate time-sensitive information. Additionally, you have the Messenger option available to you. If you're not currently using it and want to explore it, let us know. We will make sure that we get that turned on for you and tell you a little bit more about it. Consider creating a checklist for faculty. Now, we will be doing some faculty sessions here, and we'll also have a checklist that we're able to distribute to people who come to this and to your faculty. So we'll have a little something for you that reminds them of these things, but think about having a checklist that's a little more specific to your institution. So we'll have something that goes out. Feel free to edit that so that it's specific to what your teachers need. Providing that checklist ahead of time helps to provide a structure as we all roll into the start of a new semester. And then prepare for those key dates. So again, we've got lots of key dates coming up, not just the start of the semester. We need to prepare for that first round of exams, making sure if we're using proctoring software, it's up and running. If we're using an external testing system, everything looks okay there. If we're using quizzes right within the platform, that those settings are what they need to be in order for people to deliver those quizzes the way that they want to. We also need to prepare for the add drop period, the withdrawal period, midterms where we're going to see another big round of testing and some grades that probably need to be pushed out to the registrar, and then the end of the semester, so the end of the term. And then we start all this cycle all over again as we prepare for the next semester. So that is a pretty brief but down and dirty rundown of all of the things to consider as you're heading into this fall semester. And getting ready and getting your faculty ready. We are going to stop now and open things up for some question and answer. I've been seeing some different things come through the chat, and I see that Claire and Courtney are in there responding to folks, but we're here for you to ask questions, so please do so. We're happy to answer those for you. Let's see. Looks like there were lots of questions about where to find course copy. And how to use it. So one of the things I'll mention about course copy is that being able to use course copy is actually dependent more so on the variety of permissions that are enabled for a specific role. So if your teachers do not have all of the backup and restore permissions, that role doesn't have all the backup and restore permissions, they're not going to be able to course copy. But for you to course copy, when there are two ways to get there. The first is going into your site administration panel, clicking on courses, and then when you go to manage courses and categories and you come in there, when you look at any one course, off to the right-hand side, you should see an icon that looks like two pieces of paper. That's your course copy feature. When you click that, a panel will come up where you'll be able to enter what the new course name and short name are, what category it needs to go into, start and end date. So basically, it's the edit settings page for a course. And once you put everything in, you can click to copy. It will continue to copy in the background, and then it will finish up and you can go into that course. That will create an exact replica of the course you started with. You do have the option to include historical user information if you want. If you are creating a new course for the next run of the semester, you don't want to include that user information. You don't need to bring all that student information over. So that's course copy. You can also get to course copy from within a course going up to the course admin panel. Let's see what else we have for questions in here. The quiz autosave option is, Claire gave the information there about where to find it. You need to go into the site admin panel, go to plugins, activity modules, and quiz. If you don't have access to that part of the site admin menu, reach out to us via ticket. We're happy to make those changes for you and let you know what the current setting is. Let's see if there are any other questions. No other questions that I see, but if you do have any questions or comments, please leave them right there in the chat. We're happy to answer those for you. We're here for about another 20 minutes. We're happy to answer any questions you might have. And if you don't have any questions, please feel free to hop off. I know that you may have carved out an hour, so that extra 20 minutes can be precious. Ashley, thank you so much for being here today, Ashley. Hi, Sarah. I believe the recording will be sent to people who joined today. I think we have a way of tracking that. I'll be honest, Madison had to jump off the call for another call. She is the person who manages that. but we will definitely make sure that people get a copy of that you are notified that this recording is out, and we'll make sure you get that checklist as well. Let's see, Rebecca, yeah, we can definitely go over how to copy a course again. Actually, let me stop sharing and I'll bring up a site and we can actually look at a site. So if you just bear with me for just a second, I'll get up to a site here that we can look at. You're welcome. All right, let me find my share. There we go. Okay. So you should now see a site here. I'm going to log into this site and we'll look at course copy. Okay. Here we are. All right, so if I want to copy a course, I'll come right over to my site admin panel over here. And then I'm going to come to courses, manage courses and categories, very first option. Okay. I'll close my nav drawer so we have a little more space. And what you'll see now is here's a course and there is this 2 pieces of paper here. So if I click to copy, what I'm going to get is really that course administration panel. So like when I go into a course and I click to edit the settings of a course, that's where I am. I'll give it a new name. A new short name, and remember that the short name has to be unique, so it can't be the exact same short name as last time. So we'll just put one in here. I pick the category where this needs to be. I then determine the course visibility, so I can set it to show or hide, pick the start and end date for the course. And here's where I can choose to include that user data. For our sites, for the most part, this is going to default to no. It's a pretty rare instance that I'm going to copy a course and keep user data. It does happen occasionally, but not very often. Then I can either copy and return, which will begin the copy process and take me back out to the course management area, or copy and view, which is going to show me that it's still copying, and then I'll be in the middle of the course once it's done copying. So let's see, we've got a couple of other questions. To answer your question, Steve, yes, we have many clients who are successfully using Safe Exam Browser. A couple of things to know about Safe Exam Browser, though. It does not work on Chromebooks, so you will not be able to use that if your learners are using Chromebooks. If you are using Safe Exam Browser, you often have to put the site in with a wildcard, the site URL with a wildcard at the end. Into the URL filtering so that it allows the learners to navigate on the site once they're in there and taking the quiz. If you're using the separate Safe Exam Browser configuration tool, there are a lot of options on there. One of the things that we have found that has been a hiccup for people is one, not having the site URL as an allowed URL, and two, if we, on the very first panel, there's a way to set up keys that have to be entered or authenticated every time someone comes in to use the quiz. These can be problematic because every single time anything is updated, you have to issue a whole new set of keys. So the initial ones that you may have passed out aren't going to work anymore. We try to encourage people not to use those if you're using that external config tool. But if you have any questions about Safe Exam Browser, definitely reach out to us. We're happy to continue to help folks work through that and use that. Let's see. Hey, Mike, so you've never used Moodle, but another person was using it, and do you have to start all over? You can pick up where he might have left off. Well, if you have access to the existing site, you can just pick up where he left off. So if that site that person was managing is something that's already there, you can pick up where they left off. You'll definitely probably need a few pointers here or there. We do have, if you are a client, an extensive knowledge base where you can go in and find really high quality tutorials and walkthroughs about how to use different features. We also offer admin training. We're really just wrapping up our Intro to Site Administration course for folks, but keep an eye out. Our Academy does offer different courses to kind of help you along the way as you get going and into that site there. I'm just going to refresh here so that you can see there is my course copy now. And if I click into that, here, I click a little cog and then there we go. I'm going to have what was a replica of the previous course, which was just a course to show some information, but that's how course copy works. Just keeping an eye here. You're very welcome, Mike. Keeping an eye here on the chat. So if you see me looking to the side, that's why. All right. We'll hang out for another couple minutes here if there are any questions. And if not, please feel free to go enjoy the rest of your day. We're here if you need us. Just reach out through Zendesk and we're happy to answer your questions. You're welcome.
I think, Steve, you snuck that question in. Did that get answered about the course copy updating the due dates? I don't believe it rolls the dates on course copy. Is that correct, Amy?
You know, I can't speak to that. I actually have not tested that part of it. I know that there are places where when you upload a course, you can force that for some activities. Yeah. Definitely something I can try out, Steve, and get back to you later today with that. I'll send it over to you in a ticket and let you know what I find out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it just makes like a sort of a set clone of the course because it doesn't really give you, I don't think it gives you the options, but definitely we can test it out, or Stephen, you can test it out and see how it works.
Right, and I can see where you're going with it, Stephen, because you are resetting the start and end date. So, but we can test that out today and let you know.
Although the docs do say, as well as setting the course name, category visibility, and dates. So I think we just have to look at it. Some of that's temperamental. So yeah, I think you're right, Stephen. I think it probably does work like import, but you know, it is Moodle. So
right, and that's why I didn't want to say for sure one way or the other, because I thought, you know, I can't remember if I checked that.
I know we've tested it, but I can't recall offhand. So
me either.
All right.
Okay. All right, well, we are down to the last 10 minutes here of time that we blocked off, but very few people, most of which are OpenLMS folks here. So we will call it a day. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. This was great. We hope that you got some information out of it, and we'll talk to you all soon.